Welcome to Magical Mindset with Macarena Luz Bianchi, where we explore the magic of mindset, gratitude, and purposeful living. I'm your host, Macarena, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of wonder, wellness, and wisdom. You can find the episode show notes, your free magical mindset blueprint, and more at express.me/podcast. And here's the show.
Rock and roll.
So hello there, Derek Seagrief. You are someone I consider a dear friend. You're very wise. I think of you as an alchemist. But how would you introduce yourself?
The short version or the longer version? The short version is like AAA. I'm an alchemist, I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm an astrologer. And that's enough. Basically, I do many different things because I'm a bridge builder. So I bridge build between different disciplines. And I've been working in these areas since I was 16 and I'm now 70 plus. So that will give you an idea of what I would call a long track record behind me of living what I teach. So yes, there's the simple introduction.
Absolutely wonderful. So it's always a pleasure. We have a lot of fun in our sessions. I see you at least once a year for my astrological reading. And what I love about it is it's really like a roadmap. It's a map. And it's almost the way I see it is it helps to see what's coming up in case I want to take advantage of it. So if I was planning a trip, I'd like to know where the rest stops are. Okay, that's an opportunity to go to the bathroom, get something to eat, right? With astrology, the way I think of it is what are the energies in play so that I may capitalize with them and not get too frustrated when things are not going the way I expect. So how do you see astrology?
Okay, since I've been working with this for 45 years, then again, I'll give a kind of very brief definition. I always start my sessions by reminding my clients that everything is energy. So I can describe the horoscope in terms of planets, in terms of archetypes, but I prefer to say energy because the horoscope is an energy portrait. And when we understand it's an energy portrait, then this is what we would call a frozen moment of time that describes your set of instructions. And throughout the life, then there are stages in which this set of instructions gets tapped into and unfolded, and the potential to express is there. So my job is to honor which planets are dominant for that person right now or the next year or so, and to get them to cooperate with honoring those planetary principles, because this is the way that you're going to get the most out of it. So periods of opportunities, periods of challenges. And yes, you described it well. It is a landscape. And if you have an awareness of the landscape, then you can make better judgments about many things. So yes, I think that as a diagnostic tool, there's nothing like it. And in my 70 odd years, I've never met a retired astrologer. And I don't intend to retire. It'll be an ongoing thing in the next lifetimes. And all the people that I meet, when they're working with astrology, it's a never-ending fund of growth and awareness because, yes, we have the same archetypes, but we use them very differently. So an astrologer, it can be a very good friend, a coach, a mentor, a guide to help you utilize your energies in the best possible way. So, yes, there's your brief description.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your succinct and your wisdom. That's one of the things I really appreciate about you. So when preparing for this, we were thinking about the question of how to bring magic into the everyday life. But before we can even go there, how do you see magic? I use it a lot, like metaphorically, but I know you approach it differently. So please tell us, what is magic to you?
I could say you ask what is sex to somebody or what is love to somebody, you're going to get many different responses. So again, it's the same. If you ask me, I'll give you my personal definition, but other people would have their experience of what they understand by magic. So there's many ways to approach this. First, I would say going back to this theme of everything is energy. And because everything is energy, I think you and I, when considering what would be a valuable topic, worked out that what could be the most important contribution that such a podcast could have. We can talk about 1,000 different things, but for me, it's so essential to bring the magic back into our everyday life, because otherwise it tends to be very predictable and very stereotyped and very mundane. It's like a black and white TV compared with a color TV. So my way of working with magic is to make this bridge between the different dimensions, to be a bridge builder and introduce these energies into the everyday world. So there's much, much more color. There's much, much more richness. If we lose the magic in our everyday life, becomes extremely boring and extremely predictable. And magic is not that. It's most unpredictable, but you can work with it in a conscious way. Scientific definition of magic would be, and I'm quoting what I wrote down here, the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with the will and the imagination. Now, I can expand upon what that means, but it is a science, which is the knowledge of working with energy, and it is the art, which is the application of these energies. And it's to create change in the environment to occur in conformity with how you are working with the will aspect and the imagination aspect. This is a big subject to come into, but basically, the will is, for a simpler definition, it's the Cinderella of modern psychology. And the will is the masculine aspect of our psyche, the ability to externalize what is already available inside us, but the ability, masculine, to bring it forth. That's masculine, that's the will dimension. But before this can occur, you need the feminine aspect that nurtures a thought form, a mindset, an emotional value. The feminine, we call it the imagination. Imagination, look around you in your room and where I'm sitting, everything has been created by someone who used their imagination. So they converted something on an invisible plane and then brought it through the will and made it physically manifest. So we do this all the time, and most people are very unconscious of this process. But I will assure you and our listeners that we're moving rapidly now into the first degree of the age of Aquarius, which every degree lasts about 72 years. So in the first degree of Aquarius, and you look around, you can see everything is speeding up. Everything is about the ability to bring a thought form out and into manifestation much quicker than ever before in our history as humanity. This is so important to understand. My kids will tell me that I'm like a dinosaur when it comes to the digital world, and they're probably quite right, because I was one of those who had some of the first computers that were ever made, and we're now talking about 70s. So I had to hand draw all my horoscopes. Imagine hand drawing a horoscope. And now our computers are incredibly sophisticated. So my computer at the moment is 4 years old. That's considered old in modern terms. But computers nowadays, with a touch of a button, I can go back several thousand years if I want, or go forward however many years I want. Now, that is technological advancement, but that's magic as well. I was with friends who had the first mobile phones. I come from Scandinavia. I live in Denmark. And the first mobile phones were huge walkie-talkies that were so heavy, and we felt that they were so sophisticated because we could be out in the forests in Norway and talk to someone around the world. Now, that's what I mean by technological advance shows magic in an obvious way, the power of thought made manifest on the physical plane. But we are entering into an age where you and I and every person out there is going to learn much more effectively what they can do in their everyday life to create magic is to be much, much more conscious of this bridge building ability. We have to be conscious. If I have a physical problem and you go to the hospital and doctors, then you know what's going to happen. They're going to look at the symptoms. They're going to treat outer effects, the symptoms. They never, ever, amen, they don't deal with causes. So if you want to understand magic, you've got to work with the inner and the outer. You've got to look at the causes. You then are the motivating cause, which then affects change on the outer level. And everyone can learn this. And it's something that I truly encourage everyone to be enthusiastic about this, because the majority of people still believe that the outer world outwardly conditions the inner life. And you can see environmental factors, cultural factors. The outside reality affects who we are on the inside. Yes, one can't deny that. But the degree to which it's going to affect you and the degree to which your inner life, your inner world can affect change in the outer, this is the big problem for the majority of people. They don't see that they can affect change on the outer. And if you can't see this capacity for your inner life to be more of your inner life on the outer level, then you're not going to be a magician. Because this is what it means. There are many things that I don't like about our world. And then I've spent many years in my way of working with magic to affect change by creating space and a place by which those energies and those mindsets and those emotional values that I have on the inner level are made manifest on the outer level. So believe me when I say this is magic. But most people will not see it in that way because they still give too much power outside of themselves. This is the normal attitude is self-doubt, but the normal mantra that most people say is yes, but. The yes, but mantra. Yes, Derek, I would love to do that,
But
but I'm not a yes, but man. I'm a yes man or I'm a no man. I
yes,
mean,
and
yeah, because again, this is magic. Because think about in ceremonial magical terms, this would be called the magical oath. A magical oath is if you say something, then it's very important that you deliver. That if you've made a statement you have witnesses, it may be on the physical plane, other people, but on the inner planes, there are plenty of invisible witnesses to what we say and do. This is also an awareness of magic. So if I'm saying something and I'm not doing it, that lessens my magical power. But if I say this is what I'm going to do and I do it, whatever it is, it could be something very small, like promising my kids we go to a fairground tomorrow. And if I keep on not doing what I'm saying, this neutralizes one's magical power. Now, this is so important to get right that if you want magical power, then first look at the power of sound, what you're saying, and don't say anything that you don't mean. And don't change your mind about things. Yes, we're human, but it's so essential you support yourself. Anything that you say is your goal and you want to do, then you've got to work towards that. Now, again, most people will have some issues about their willingness to believe the vision. But if you set into motion, this is what I want to do, but you have self doubt, then of course we know the answer. It's already there from the beginning. If you have self doubt about it, then it's not going to go further. You've already sabotaged it. So that's why most magicians or all magicians have this ability to be very one pointed. And when I say one pointed, 100%. If you want success in anything in life, you've got to be 100%. And that means exactly that. You've got to put all of your thought life, your emotional life, your vitality, you're investing in it. So if you want it to be successful, get involved totally.
I love what you're saying, but I know that doubt is very common. We've all been there. So then
Yes,
is doubt a sign that we're not ready to claim that or to make it? I'm just curious with the things you're saying.
right.
How does one deal with doubt?
Okay, so the first thing is to understand is that it's very human and we all have it, but it can be worked through. And as the answer to many things, if you want to have a stronger will, then you practice willpower. If you want to have stronger imagination, then you practice imagination. So it's the same here with doubt. If you keep telling yourself, yes, but, or I would love to, but Derek, you don't know my circumstances, then you've already made your bed and you're lying in it because you are the author, you are the creator. And if you are the king or queen of your kingdom and you have these doubts, then you know the answer. And of course, this is I would have to say is one reason why we have more and more health issues that many people are going through in these years, because energy is changing, energy frequencies are intensifying. I think everyone is quite aware that there's a lot of acceleration of frequencies, and the body goes through lots of tension and goes through lots of stress. This is not necessarily negative, but if one is in resistance, then the body shows this. But so self-doubt, very human, but it can be cured by practicing, supporting yourself, honoring yourself, and don't give power away outside of you. And many of my clients will have children, and then many teenagers demonstrate this very strongly, that it's so important for a teenager what their friends say about them and what their friends talk and feel and attitudes. So that is about one's profile, and one wants other people to talk of oneself. But if you want their opinion more than you give yourself the support and remove self-doubt, then you're already giving power away to outside of you, and then you can't be a magician. And we all have to go through these different phases, and how quick we learn, that's an individual case, but we all have to go through it. So yeah, the answer is practice. And the answer is look at where you want to go and stop bringing up the past about what you can't do or what didn't work last time. Look at where you want to go and invest energy and power in the future, in the making, where you want to go. Again, I make it sound simple, but actually, a lot of things are simple. We complicate it with our self doubt.
This brings up, as a mindset coach in my practice, how I handle this is people bring up all the garbage. And then it's, okay, what if that wasn't there? What if that's not? So this brings back, like, what is the question we're asking of ourselves? And I think one of the things that has come up when I tell people about what I do and the whole idea of the lighthearted living formula, which is wonder, wellness, wisdom, and people, I have found, especially the people come to me, are ignoring at least one part of this, sometimes two. If we put career and action-based stuff and habits under wisdom, most people have enough information and know what to do. But what I find, which is the magic, of course, is the wonder. They lack curiosity. They're not giving themselves space, which I would call wellness. So giving yourself space to actually contemplate, and what are the questions we're asking of ourselves to move through these things.
Well, quite right. I enjoy going to people's homes, and if I look in their bookshelf, in their library, I see some wonderful books, but I also look at, is it you? Like the back, is it broken? Is it bent? Can I see that the person is reading this book, or it's just there as decoration? As an artist and as an author, I'd much rather see notes inside a book that the person is dialoguing with that book, because the dialoguing means that you're creating a relationship. And when you create a relationship, then energy flows. It's not there for what we call a cosmetic, just for looking at.
To be fair, most of us do that on a Kindle. Most of us have switched to doing that electronically, by the way. So now you can't judge by a bookshelf before, when like that was the only option. But I hear you.
Curiosity is essential if we're going to explore the traditional triangle. Triangles are very important in magic, the power of three. But you have the father dimension, the masculine, which is, we can call it archetypally the provider. Then you get the mother, the nourisher, the nurturer. And then you get the third point on the triangle, which is normally the upper point, which is the child. But the child is archetypally the explorer. And we need to be the explorer. We need all three of them. But this is what magic is, combining what already exists. But definitely the explorer is curious. And we've lost that. If you go to birthing places, clinics, but also hospitals, you'll see that the conversation tends to be, as parents to be, how can we avoid pain? Right? Instead of the joy of what's about to take place. No, it's all demoted on a very physical level. So now there is no magic in the birth moment. There's no miracle in the birth moment. It's all a matter of physical reference and physical convenience as to, oh, the doctor wants to do it on Friday afternoon. Can you cooperate with that and things like that? So that's the first thing. And the miracle of having the physical body as a woman open out and to allow the head to pass through, that's a miracle of engineering. And that's magic. and then it closes again. That's magic. But you can see that the type of attitude is people aren't really curious and interested. And your favorite word in America, awesome. The word means awestruck. I got 3 kids and I've been present at all their births, and they've been water births. And I've taken my last child, a daughter, took her out the water in the first seconds that she's being born. This is a miracle, but it's magical. And it's this that I want people to understand, that if you start birthing with that sense of joy and its magic, and you trust life rather than be in a state of defense and fearful of life. And so the contrast is at the end. You've got the birth, and then take the end of life. Again, there's no magic, or the majority of people in our societies are in total self denial about the death process. But the death process is also very magical, because you're going to make connection with different dimensions. How well does our society prepare us for making contact with these different dimensions? It doesn't at all. So therefore, I've done a lot of work. I've written books on about the astrology of death, entrance and exit, and I've written about what we call the planetary bardo states. If we can prepare us as adult human beings for more conscious cooperation with these other dimensions, this is magic. But do you think the church is going to help you with this? They can't, because they have no training or techniques. They can be very good at helping the bereaved, those family members and friends who have lost somebody, but for the actual person going over the other dimensions, they have no teaching and no training to help them. And that's why one normally turns to the Buddhist societies, because at least they have very strong traditions about how to cooperate with this. So it's from the beginning to the end. And in between is where the magic occurs. On an everyday level, this would mean start the day, be conscious of how you begin the day. What is the thought form you have when you wake up? Is it, oh, another day? Same, I'm writing a page in the book of life. Is it going to be the same thought forms, the same everything that I did yesterday and last week and last year? That's up to each one of us, isn't it? So this is where we can begin it. And this is a suggestion to everyone out there. Magic is seeing and discovering what already exists, but you become conscious of this relationship with it. And because you're conscious with it, you then have a much more of a dynamic interaction with what already exists. And then through will and the imagination, you can direct it. So here's an example. If I asked each one of you to look at your name and then look at the initials, Derek. So D would be the first initial, and then Seagrief, S will be the second initial. So the test and the challenge and the exercise for each one of you, I'll show you mine in a minute, but make a glyph, a diagram, a picture of those 2 letters that describe your essence. Now, you may think, oh, no, I can't do that. You can if you think magically. Here, I'm going to show you mine on the screen.
Oh,
All right, so look,
wow. That's cool.
so there's the D, which is, as you can see, it's a vase, a bowl, right? And a bowl contains something, it holds something, and there's the S emerging from it. Now, you may think that looks like a
Cool.
diagram for a nice cup of tea. I'm not sure if I give tea and sympathy to my clients, but what this represents to me and my essence is I am the keeper of the sacred flame. And
Oh,
this picture
wow.
illustrates exactly in these 2 symbols the essence of who I am. Got that?
Very
This is
cool.
it.
That's
Yeah, this
really
is my
awesome.
example, but I want each one of you just to play around with this, because this is the way you make connection with the other worlds. We live in multi-dimensionality. You can't work with magic if you think binary. Our world is all in schools and families and society. We still perpetuate the myth of binary, good, bad, east, west. It's ridiculous. And I say it's ridiculous because where in my generation, where's these 50 plus years gone? We've been learning about right and left brain hemispheres. If I was to say that in other peoples who are not Earth peoples, but we would call them extraterrestrials, they don't have left and right brain, they have one brain. In other words, They're unified with their male and their female qualities. We still think
Mm.
in left brain attitudes or right brain, but our salvation, and this is where magic has a great role to play, is bridge building between these two areas all the time. So there's a dynamic flow. All right, so I gave you that was one example just to illustrate if you can see what exists this deeper level and you can make it come forth, then you're already bridge building between these different dimensions. So now I'm going to give you another one, and each one of you can do this. It's a good exercise. You can take your name and you look at the letters in your name. Now, these letters, like language, if we change the sound through the hole in the face and talk Spanish or English or Danish, whatever, then can we understand it? It's just a different sound. When we look at letters, the combination of letters, we can rearrange them. These are the letters that make up your name, but they can be rearranged. This is what I would do in a workshop. I give people 7 minutes to create as many new words, but you can only use the letters in your name. And then the record is, I think, 60 words created by a Swedish man in 7 minutes, which is pretty good.
Is this first and last name?
Both names. You use all the
Okay.
letters that are there. For example, you can see SEA, C, and then RED, red. You can see straight away there's all kinds of words that are there. But the more you create more words, that's the first stage in this. This is my example. Each one of you should do your own example so you can get into this magical theme. When you've done that, and you have to put a time limit on it because otherwise, so 7 minutes max, 10 minutes, and no more. So a bit of pressure is necessary to create. And then when you got all these words, then you combine these words. It's like a mantra. You will see they're individual words, but when you put them together, they make a sentence. Now, this sentence can be completely crazy. It has no logic whatsoever, but it will make sense to you. It will make sense because you are seeing a relationship between these words and how it reveals something about you. Okay, so my example, Derek Seagrief, using the letters that are available, this is what I come up with. I see red rider, arid seas, fakers. I rake fear. Far Ra rides side aid. I kiss Far Ra.
Fun.
No, for me, this makes sense. I'm very inspired by Egyptian. That's why you get the Ra in this. And people may know what the Red Rider is. And yes, I'm very involved in being involved with authenticity means that I'm going to see fakers and what is fake, or what is not so real and that. So this combination of words and this rhythm says a lot to me about what I'm here to do. So basically, I'm discovering what already exists, but I didn't see it before, but I'm now seeing it. And that's what magic is, seeing what already exists, but you didn't relate to it. And that everyone can do because this is about using the eye. And now I mentioned Egypt. So in Egypt, it's called the eye of light. And you have to look at the eye. We can say the psychological eye, the self, or we can look at the physical eye. But in the end, the eye is the clearest demonstration of the spirit on the physical plane. It captures light and it, of course, gives out light. But if you look at the symbolism of the eye, you'll have the iris, the circle in the middle with a dot. That's a symbol for the sun, which is the masculine archetype that creates all. That's what we call in Egypt Ra. That's why I call it Father Ra. And then you look at the crescent moons, one above and one below. But you see, the crescent moon is like that. It's the moon. It's the waxing phase of the moon, 14 days of increase of light, and the waning phase of the moon, 14 days of decrease of light. So together, they enclose the sun. So therefore, you have the sun and moon in our eye. And it's the sun and moon, which is exactly what we've been talking about with the willpower, the solar principle, the masculine, and the power of imagination, which is, of course, in magical terms, this is the feminine. So yes, as you do, Macarena, I am all for developing and encouraging the powers of the imagination. Because look at the word. Look at the word. EI hyphen
Hi.
Maggie, magic, hyphen nation. Maggie nation. I magic nation. In other words, my world is my kingdom is one of magic. And my world is. But everyone can use this ability, but you've got to combine male and female. You will not create successful magic unless you are in a good harmony with your masculine and your feminine principles. This is clear. And the examples I'm giving, I hope, are clear. So enjoy this kind of name working. It's great fun. And of course, magic can be fun, but it's also a way of showing you what you didn't see existed. And then it will stimulate you to create more bridge building between these inner life and the outer world.
I love what you're saying. The magic is everywhere. Like, I really live like that. And I had this experience the other day. I had some free time and I got to wander around, and I knew I was going to have a magical time. And you better believe it manifested. It was wonderful. And then it was interesting to hear somebody else having a very different experience on their adventure.
Journey through the lighthearted pages of Dear Dad, a poem of appreciation for the lessons and support that only fathers provide. Perfect for any occasion where love for Dad is celebrated. Get yours today at macarenaluzbianchi.com. Also available in Spanish and for children as part of the Grateful Giraffe series, The Adventurous Giraffes, for the love of Dad.
So what this brings to mind is, what does it take for people to express their masculine and feminine side? So I think there has to be some acknowledgement, some acceptance. What are the steps to unlocking that prep phase to be able to have more magic and experience more magic and express it?
Okay, so in Eastern teachings, they say that only sages, wise people, teachers, and children will ever be happy because they play with this theme. They play with it, meaning that if you ask a child, they're drawing, they're painting, you ask a child, what are you doing? What a stupid question to ask. You can see what they're doing, they're creating, but they don't know what they're doing until it's finished. And it's the same here, that it's essential that when you get involved in a creative process, and magic is creative, there's no question about that, you lose all sense of time. That's the first thing. We are obsessed with time and we are so conditioned with time. But hold on, time is plastic. Time can be stretched. And this is a demonstration of magic, that when you're enjoying something, time goes quick. You think, wow. And ask any teenager who's playing games on the computer, 5 hours has suddenly gone by and they thought it was only 1 hour or 2 hours, right? And when you're in a situation which is quite boring and frustrating, then it feels as though it's so long and slow and laborious. So it's not outside of us, it's the attitude inside of us. So we know time is a mindset. And it exists on this plane, on this dimension, but it doesn't exist on the other dimensions. So that's my first point in answer to this, that don't worry about time. And like with the child or the wise person, you are totally absorbed in what you do, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the time is. You are fully present in what you do now. So if your mind is split and you're thinking about what we're going to eat for dinner in the next hour or so, how's the magic going to be then? You've already pulled yourself away from what you're doing, and then you are lessening your magic. I point this out because we all do it, but we can learn to shape shift, be fully present in what we do, 100%, and then shape shift and move to another area that needs attention. But we must finish things. You must complete something. You do not leave things unfinished. And if a person has a history of they're good at starting something, but they don't finish it, this will describe their magic. So if you really want the circuit to be fully connected, then whatever you begin, however long it takes to finish it, you finish it. So basically, we need to don't worry about our busy lives. If we're too busy all the time and our diary is fully booked, unfortunately, I would have to say this is a disease. You don't want busyness, you want activity. right? You want to be
Mhm.
active. You want to be conscious of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're addicted to movement, and you've gone into something and okay, now I've done that. Now the next task, the next challenge. And then you go fully into that. And then I finish that. And now the next thing. Yes, you may be on appearances as though you're successful at doing things and finishing things, but you're not integrating what's been created. We're not learning from what you're doing. You're addicted to movement and moving on to the next challenge, but you're not enjoying life. And what are we here to do? Is it workaholic and work until we drop dead? Maybe some people believe that, but no, we're here. The spirit, the soul quality in our lives is the quality of everyday living. So the soul wants us to have good experiences and what some would call bad experiences, but it wants experiences because it can learn from all kinds of experiences. So don't veto any experience in a binary way, good or bad. Everything can be used for the soul to extract meaning from. And then the life is much more enjoyable and meaningful because you are extracting meaning from whatever's taking place in your life. And that's where the feminine is being very receptive. And we've had conversations the last few days about the masculine and the feminine cultures. And if we're too emphasizing one dimension, then the opposite dimension becomes a shadow. And if it's a shadow, then we don't accept it or we don't integrate it, we don't work with it. But then that's the problem before us. And in this world where we live now, how we handle the shadow will be dependent upon how much war there's going to be in the future. If you can integrate, let's call it the darkness within you, and understand that darkness is not always negative or evil as Christian teachings would have us believe. And this is where I could get into some very provocative subjects, but light is a child of the darkness. And in Kabbalistic terms, this is where after the Big Bang, the universe went dark, completely dark for billions of years. And then at a certain stage, suddenly all the planets were arranged where they were. Everything had its structure, but it was from darkness that there emerged this quality. Now, this is again, I refer also to my what I call teachings from Egypt. This is why they divided the country. Half the country was dedicated to light, the sun god, and half the country was dedicated to what Christians call Satan, but which the astrologers would call Saturn, and which the Egyptians called Set, S-E-T, or Seth. Now, to be a king of Egypt, a pharaoh of Egypt, you had to have the crown of the upper part and the lower part, the red crown and the white crown. When you had them combined together, you were a pharaoh of a united kingdom. Now, this is very sophisticated. I have to say it because they understood that it was the so-called shadow side that pushes us into growth. You don't grow unless there's pain. And then we have such a resistance to pain. But in the end, when you grow physically, you have physical pain. When you grow emotionally, there's emotional pain. When you grow mentally, there's a mental pain. And because you're a so called spiritual being on a spiritual path, don't believe that this is an avoidance of pain. So there's pain is the inevitability of growing. Suffering is a performance. That's up to each one of us.
Yes.
How much is me? Hey, you up there, why me? That's up to us if you want to play the victim role. But pain is part of our journey because it helps us what I would call harmony through conflict. Because of conflict, we are aware of conflicting opposites. Contrast enables us to see things more clearly. And then we learn and we move on, hopefully. So our attitude towards pain is a big issue. And I would say, as a practicing magician, if people want to really understand magic, you've got to absorb all forms of experience and have no preference for one. If you keep on talking about wholeness, then I would challenge each person to define what they mean by that. My definition would be I'm open to every experience there is. I will not veto any experience.
It all helps you be human.
Multi-dimensional, and that's what it means to be truly whole. We're moving into an age of multi-dimensionality, not this reality or that reality. No, it's many realities coexisting.
So interesting. This comes up a lot, this whole idea of the full spectrum, to really be open. It's not just the little corner that feels good. We have to be open to everything because that is life. So pretending it's not that feels like denying. I guess then what needs to happen is, I talk about this in the sense of set yourself up to succeed. Organize yourself so that you can have magic. In film, when I was a filmmaker, we have a saying that says, we prepare so that the magic can happen. But I think it's the same thing applies to a household or whatever our responsibilities are, whether it's feeding our families or whatever it is, we do it consciously. And when it's time to do it, then it frees us up to allow some magic in some other times. There's that bit of setting ourselves up to success. And then I find that a lot of us are in and out of overwhelm. The other thing you had mentioned that made me think of, I talk about it as life is a playground of experience. It's not about good or bad. If most of your rides are scary rides, because for whatever reason, if you don't want to do that anymore, it's like you can absolutely reallocate that real estate. So with all of this, how, in adding magic to everyday life, I think one of the things needs to be addressed is the overwhelm. And I think that's why, because of this level of maybe cultural or community overwhelm, it's hard to look at the darkness. And for me, I'm a Scorpio, so I guess I'm not afraid of that. I don't mind because I can navigate.
You've got to be comfortable with light and dark and not have one's attitude will determine the degree and what kind of experiences you get. And this is where mindsets are so important. And all I've said and what you're now saying is that be careful of judgment is a bit like an allergic reaction. If you have an allergy, you can't accept something, whatever it is, if it's milk or whatever it is, but you're allergic to it. You can't take it in. And it's the same. If you don't like something, then you can't take it in. And now I give the metaphor to everybody that on a circumference of a circle, each point on the circumference leads to the center. It's a different perspective. It's a different way of coming to the center. But celebrate diversity, enjoy the differences. Do not feel competitive. You like that or you don't like that. Learn to appreciate. And then you're in this level, which is the feminine quality of designing a life where there's wholeness, where there's cooperation with differences. And that is the path forward for us to create a healthier society and what we would call a wisdom society more than a knowledge-only society. We need the wisdom. We don't need more knowledge. It's endless. We need the wisdom.
Yes, and that's why I talk about Wonder Wellness Wisdom, which are the full expression of mind, body, and spirit, right? So it's not enough, like you said, we've got plenty of knowledge. Everybody knows things. So I really find what's important, like in my line of work, is helping people integrate, right? Helping them embody these things. And I know you talk a lot about the same thing, like the embodiment.
Right. But this is the key to everything. And I hope we're saying many different things that I hope could inspire listeners. But for me, as a therapist for 45 years, I would say that I challenge clients in front of me to look at what happened in their past, and I can specify a time period and certain events and how have they integrated that in their life at the moment? Because if you don't work with your own life material, then you're not going to be a magician. You have to relate to what you have created, because what you've created on the physical plane, on the emotional plane, relationships and things, and on the mental plane with your thoughts and ideas, these thought forms come back to us. Some would call that a rebound. Others would call that fate. And as an astrologer, I would call that the planet Saturn, that brings us back into our own self-created reality. If you don't take responsibility for what you have created, then how can you come further as a magician? You won't. So the first task is to look at what you've created. And if you didn't like it, then rewrite the script. You're the author. Rewrite it. But don't keep on keeping on with the same mantra and expect things to be better, because if you want change, you've got to do things different. Or else that's the Oxford Dictionary definition of insanity. doing things the same way as you've always done and expecting change.
I love this. I love this conversation we're having. So back to bringing magic into the everyday, let's start with the morning. Is it the questions we're asking? Is it the intentions we're setting? Is it all of those things? What does a magical day look like?
This is a book in itself.
It is. And of course, it's going to be different for everyone. What I'm looking for is for the person who wants more magic in their life, how can throughout the day they invite? That's what I'm asking, because magical day is going to be different every day. But where are the opportunities to invite magic into the everyday?
That's why it starts from the very beginning. How do you enter into a new day when you wake up? What are the rituals that you do to start your day? Now, we all have breakfast, shower, and things like that, but there could be many other rituals. But the most important is when you wake up, are you conscious? This is a new day. There's new opportunities. How will carpe diem? How will you seize the opportunity that is presented to you? Because if not, it becomes routine. And most people are not designing a life. They're just existing. So this is the first thing. To be creative is to create. So then let's say a good example would be today's a Sunday. So on a Sunday, a day of the sun where there's increased light, you look back at the last week and you write down 4 sections. The first section will be, how did I see on the physical event level, what was the most important physical event in my life the last few days? In other words, the last week. That's the first paragraph. And then the next paragraph will be, what was the most important emotional experience that I had in this last week? And emotion and feelings is the glue that links us to other human beings. It's going to be about you interacting with other people. That's the key here. So the third section will be mind, mental body. Was there any new idea? What was the most potent new idea or new thought that I had in the last 7 days? As we're all aware that we have the same thoughts and the same attitudes day in, day out, but there will emerge a particular new thought. And that is very, very important to register, to get it down. And then the fourth and final section would be, how did I experience spirit in the last 7 days? Now, if our listeners were to make such a diary and every week write down these 4 sections, they're already seeing it's a great method of becoming more conscious of what I'm physically doing, what I'm emotionally involved in, what I'm mentally occupied with. And spirit, in my way of understanding spirit, is my life more living. If you have more connection with spirit, then you're more living. And livingness means that you don't have any deficiencies in life. These simple diary notations would be a great way of evaluating your life and seeing what you need to do to change it. Because the more I didn't have many good ideas the last week, then fine, then change it this week.
Yeah.
Because it's all about consciousness. So consciousness is the key to everything. People come to me as an astrologer thinking that I'm going to be an oracle and tell them all kinds of weird, wonderful things, and possibly I do. But basically, I'm showing them how can you use your energies and your resources better by working with the universal and personal flow to get it better linked. And this is why I'm not promoting just knowledge and information, I'm promoting consciousness. If I can get a person to be more conscious to cooperate with their life, then I've succeeded in helping that person in the right way. So this would be my technique to all your listeners. If you want magic, then it's an ongoing discipline. It's not just one event, one off. No, you have to be disciplined that a rhythm attracts magic. And if you want something to succeed, you do it on a regular basis.
I love this.
All right. So Sunday is a good day to do this.
And then what about each day? Are there any other days of the week that have special energy we should be using in our rhythms?
Again, I have to laugh because I have a book coming out here in America which deals exactly with this theme of when we're born, we have a day when we're born and we have an hour when we're born. And that, what I've done in the book, the first book, is to show this creates a pathway and I place that on the Kabbalistic tree of life to identify what specific pathway is that person working with in this lifetime. So, yes, this is a big science in itself. 7 days of the week, the 7 classical planets. Today is Sunday, day of the sun. Yesterday was Saturday, day of Saturn. And then there's Monday, tomorrow, day of the moon, Tuesday, day of Mars, Wednesday, Mercury day, Thursday, Jupiter day, Friday, Venus day. Each of these planets has, of course, a particular vibration. And then every hour in 24 hours has also one of these planetary things. So, yes, there's a science here. One can be very specific. There are property developers and estate agents here in America that use this planetary system. When someone wants to settle a contract and a deal and it's going to be solid, they choose a Saturn hour or a Mercury hour during a Mercury day or a Saturday. There's good astrological reasons for this anchoring and earthing. This is, of course, much more specialist, but I pointed out because there are many applications of working with energy and working consciously with what energies are available with certain combinations of planets. Yes, but this is something that one can learn, but it's not in just a couple of minutes. I can't really provide the system.
Of course. This is a huge topic on its own. Okay, so then back
Yeah.
to the day, like in a regular, any 24 hours, what are the opportunities? So we've talked about like the morning, like how you start the day, the tone of your day, your initial thoughts, and then how you manage that is a big start. And then usually I hear this a lot. Morning starts up great, and then life happens, right? Here's your but, and then life happens.
Right.
So then what is it, like the meal times, habit stacking?
I'm not a Muslim, but and that's obvious, but I have great respect for the 5 times a day meditation. So in other words, for us as, let's say, more Westerners, you can plot the beginning of a day is like when you wake up from the grave of the bed, that's like sunrise. So that's the east point. Something is beginning, right? And then it goes to the sun on its journey during the day, goes to the highest point at noon. So many traditions have this recognition that one does something very simple, but it's all about consciousness, that you identify. You can say a mantra or a prayer, or you make an affirmation at 12 noon. This is a very potent time of the day. And then I've done this for many years. If you take a circle, you take 12 noon and do the opposite point, 6 o'clock. Then you have a line that's going through the circle, a vertical line. But this is a very important statement. In occult terms, this is walking the razor edge pathway that leads between these two great realities. My Eastern teachers used to say that the ashrams would start their real work at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. And that's why we always did meditations based on 6 o'clock in the evening and 6 o'clock in the morning. And even now, whether I want to or not, I always wake up just before 6 o'clock. It's like an inbuilt call-in. So I would advise our listeners, if you create this circuit and you are aligning yourself with the sun at its highest, and then it goes down at sunset. Sunset can vary for each one of us, but around 6 o'clock, there's something very magical that you are aligning yourself. And lots of magical energies can be created by utilizing these points during the cycle of the day. And then what and how you use it, one would need to go into that a little bit more. But these are the times that every person, you can create your own magic by being conscious. And consciousness is the key. What do you want to be conscious of? At noon, affirm what you're doing and where you want to go. Aspire to the greatest heights and ask for support. The sun at noon is its most powerful point. Then absorb this power. Pythagoras would say, the sun at noon, it casts no shadow. And understand the magical implications of that. There's no shadow. So it's a very potent time for unification with your highest being. And those of you that know some astrology, then this would mean on your birth chart, what we call the midheaven, abbreviated to MC, is called the highest point in the zodiac when you're born. But this is the highest point. This is the point literally where the soul enters into the matrix provided by mum and dad and then enters into the embryo at this point. And that's normally about 8 weeks after conception. So there are some technical reasons why the highest point is a point of being overshadowed by your soul. It can only take 1-2 minutes. I could be on a bus and all I have to do is close my eyes and just make the attunement. You don't have to have ideal conditions. And this is the point about magic. Don't ask for the ideal conditions. Work with what there is. If you're driving, then fine, then pull over and just take those 3 minutes or something. This is the method by which you strengthen your magical vibration because you are aligning your personal world with a greater reality, the universal. And that's where the magic occurs.
Wonderful. That's very cool. So just we can go full circle here. What would be your bedtime? We've gone up to sunset. So what would be the attunement right before dream time?
If I'm correct, 38% of the American population have a problem with sleeping. That's a huge amount. And they require medication to help them sleep. This is sad because deep sleep is our birthright. So I'll tell you one of the reasons. As one example, I don't sleep that much because it's the depth of sleep. It's not the length of sleep, the duration of time, it's the depth of sleep. This is what it means to go deep into another vibration. So this only occurs if you let go of the physical plane and you let go of the worries and anxieties that you may have on the physical plane. We all have challenges and problems that we're involved in. We're human. This is part of why we incarnate on planet Earth. But you do not take your fears and your worries onto the dream cycle. Because if you do this, the value of dreams to help work with this. But what it does is that it keeps you to a certain vibration. And then no matter you have maybe 8, 9, 10 hours sleep, but you wake up and you still aren't very refreshed because it is the depth. You let go of the physical plane and you enter into the other vibrations if you want this to work. So I would then ask each one of you to, when I let go, can you let go and enter into this other dimension quite easily? I hope so, because this is what it would mean to not let one world interfere with the other world. The physical vibration is physical. It's very heavy. When you go into these other vibrations, come on, everybody dreams. So you are well aware. Some of you may have conscious recall of certain dreams. You're well aware that in the dream state, whatever you're thinking and feeling can be magically created immediately, whatever it is. On the physical plane, it takes a lot of time to bring the thought life and the feeling life to change the physical. It happens, but it takes much longer time. But on that level, on these other vibrational levels, it's immediate. Hence the power of thought. And hence the fact that all thought is energy, different frequencies. And if we're going to truly become magicians in the age of Aquarius, we have to recognize that this is our destiny, to be able to create at will. And this leads us into, or could lead us into, all kinds of discussions about the nature of Aquarius. But I want our listeners to recognize that enjoy your sleep state. Be refreshed. It's your body that needs sleep, not your brain. This is all stupid. The brain is active. It goes on other areas. It wants to recharge and meet other people and work with other dimensions. It's your body that needs sleep. So how much does your body need? If you are a heavier vibration, meaning more fearful, then possibly you need a lot more sleep. So less fear, deeper sleep.
Fascinating. I've actually clients who couldn't sleep. I told them about journaling. The prescription was, yes, do your creative journaling in the morning, but also before bed, get things out of your head to allow. And it's worked without medication. So there's something powerful to that.
But why aren't we teaching this? People come to you and me to get this inspiration and training, but why aren't we teaching it in our societies? Because when you have 38% of the population that has this as an issue, how are we teaching them? But no, as we all know, the pharmaceutical industries have been very successful convincing each one of us that you got a problem, we got a pill. So they've been very successful at making fear. If you are fearful, you're a good consumer. People like me who are more happy and more at peace, I don't buy so much. I'm not a good consumer. because I'm not fearful. But you get a fearful society, they consume more. Oh, I'm missing that. So advertising, as well as pharmaceutical companies, they stoke up our fears because this is guaranteed a better income for them.
So all of this is about being empowered. And I think magic plays a big role in that, because if you're conscious of what's going on, if you're aligned to the rhythms of life, then you're free. You're a free agent.
Right.
You can see things more clearly for what they are. And then if you can choose whether or not to participate in things, I always talk about stuff. I said, in spiritual practice or as a human, you've got everything you already need. All the resources are within you. Now, community is important, which is why it's fun. For example, like my fellow body talkers or my body intuitive friends. It's not that I think we need, or whether that's like essential oils or crystals. I don't think we need any of those. However, participating with those things provide community. Again, this consciousness allows us to do things by choice instead of as an automatic reaction to the bait that's been placed for us.
Absolutely. Community is wonderful. And understanding we're moving into an age of community. This is what Aquarius and air sign is all about. But I would like just to respect the other word you use, choice. Choice.
Yes.
The Italian psychologist Roberto Assagioli, the creator of psychosynthesis, he defined it in a very beautiful definition. Choice gives us dignity as a human being. And I cannot underestimate the power of choosing. The animal kingdom can't choose. We as human beings have the power of choice. So therefore, some would call it free will, but free will is dependent on consciousness as to how free you are. But choosing, what are we choosing? So choice is everything. And again, another point you made, the more open we are, the more freer we are. So there's a choice to be more open. The choice could be you want to walk away or choose not to, but choosing must help us support our reality. This theme of choosing is so important to get right.
We could do a whole other podcast about
Yeah.
that. And that's big part. Like that's the key point in my gratitude poem. Gratitude offers you something, but choice is where the real power is, right? Whether you're choosing gratitude or something else.
Exactly. In any situation. But this is magical. This is the point. It is choice that enables us to connect with our center. So, what are the choices that we're making? Everything is based on choice. Identity is maintained by the choices that we have. So, when a person has, as we all do, a challenge in their personality makeup and they're challenged to unfold a different aspect of their profile, that's what leads to a growth of awareness and a growth of expanded self-awareness. So we're all the time challenged to expand our awareness, but this is a choice to expand it or keep it as it is. And we want the expansion.
Exactly. So when I talk about life as a theme park of experience, it's not about being punished or learning lessons. It's about expansion. Whether your
Right.
land is filled with horror rides or a food court, you can have those things in balance. You could do anything you want with your real estate. So the whole point is it's not about punishment. Life is not about punishment. Life is about expansion. So sometimes the easiest way to expansion, like you said, is suffering. And I loved what you said because I always love that saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I find like so much of what everybody wants, the quick, the magic pill, the magic bullet, the magic whatever, that's instant. What we're saying here, it's all about the process. It's all about aligning to the cycles of things. This has been absolutely wonderful. I do want to ask you, because I try to ask this of everybody now, how does wonder, wellness, and wisdom apply to your life, your everyday life?
I'm going to give you an example of what you're asking from my history. I have to say, I could give many examples, but I think the example I'm about to give you encapsulates in a nutshell this magical way of living that I have on an everyday basis. I have family and kids, and they also have this emphasis upon the inner and the outer dynamic. So I'm going to give an example from my past. And when I work with a group of people, and I take groups to Egypt, I have done for 30 odd years. And the first time I went to Egypt in this lifetime, I was in Holland and I was teaching what we call the 42 cosmic laws of Egypt. Egypt is divided into 40 communes, 20 in Upper and 22 in Lower Egypt. So we were 42 people, my wife and I, and then 42 participants. And they said, wow, let's all go to Egypt. And I said, yeah, it's lovely. Everyone says all kinds of high things when you're in a workshop. But the next day, they came with a big bag of money and put it on my table and said, we mean it. We want you to take us to Egypt. So this was in a long time ago. This was in December 1989 that I first went back to Egypt. It was far too many people. I've never done that ever again because I don't like such big groups. But then I did it. It was my first time back. And then in this trip, I arranged that on one of the evenings, we would do a big ritual in Luxor Temple. The Luxor Temple is the ancient Thebes, and it's opposite the Valley of the Kings. I have a very special connection with this temple. And during the previous day, I had met an Egyptian guide, and he said to me, oh, if you're going to do something there, let me be a part of this because they all know me and I'll make sure that you don't get interfered with. And so everything will be protected. I said, fine, come along. So there we were. We were 33 people in the evening at 6 o'clock, the magical time when there's unity. So we did this ritual, and basically each temple is like a chakra system. And I worked at making a golden ankh, a Egyptian cross, with the group, and we turned the key in a particular area, which is where the solar plexus and the heart, that link, just where that is called the Court of Amenophis the Third, if anyone wants to know this temple. And it was a very beautiful ceremony, and I was very satisfied with what we did. And yeah, and then we left the temple. And then we went back to a hotel. And then the next couple of days we're in Cairo and we're about to leave on the plane. And then this Egyptian guide who I'd made friends with, he rang me all very excited and passionate. And he said, do you know what's happened? And I said, no, but you're obviously ringing to tell me what happened. So I'm all ears. Tell me. He said, the area where you did the ritual, they closed the area. And they said that there was sewerage from the local villages that was going under the pylon columns and that the columns needed to be straightened. And exactly in the area where we were working, they dug down 2 meters and they found 33 statues.
Wow.
And these statues were taken out of the ground because they are consecrated. When a temple creates sculptures, we have this in modern day Buddhism as well. You sing and you dance, you present food. The statues are not statues, they become living. They are receiving a God force. And so the temple has that magical capacity to get these statues to become living. And this is something that most perhaps of our listeners will find difficult to understand. But so it is. These God forces imbue the temple that's created. They can inhabit it. So anyway, the authorities then created a new museum called the New Museum of Luxor, where all these statues are there. And I point this out because some of the statues are small and some of them are very big. And many of the most beautiful ones, fantastic, exquisite examples of the high point in sculpturing, they are figures, gods and goddesses looking into eternity, because the Egyptians understood this principle about working with time and timelessness, which is, of course, why I'm particularly connected to them. I haven't mentioned it, but my first work as a young man was as a sculptor. And I had exhibitions in London and New York as a 23, 24-year-old. That was my profession. I was quite good at it. So therefore, for me, it's not just sculpture. I recognize the power imbued in these statues of a livingness. So I give you this example that my first time back in Egypt in this lifetime was with that Dutch group, and that was the karma. I had to be at that place at that time with this group, turning the key to open. And of course, my Egyptian friend guide said, okay, Derek, you've got to come back every year with a group of Scandinavians and open up more temples. And so I have. So therefore, for me, magic is not only what most people think is granting a personal desire, it's also, as I showed you in the diagram, that drawing, I'm a keeper of the sacred flame, which simply means I'm a custodian of certain knowledge and wisdom, and that I try to get that out. So by taking groups to Egypt, I've 30 odd years, that's my way of introducing these eternal teachings to a group of people that would be interested in working with an Egyptian way, connecting with these teachings. So that's magic, to align. And I go to England, Southern England, and that's another tour called In the Footsteps of Merlin. And then we do a Merlin magic. But magic, every nation, every country has its magic. And so, yeah, let's bring magic back into our lives on an everyday level and be very conscious of our creative potency to turn the world that we see and experience into the world that we want to live in.
Yes.
This is my dedication to magic. I'm a person that's very much working against fear. Fear is the most tyrannical thought form on the planet, the most powerful emotion that there is, but it's limiting. Basically, that's part of my real work, confronting fear. So I hope that gave just an example and another level of what this magic means.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Macarena, for making it possible for us to have this conversation. And I hope that it's been interesting and a bit inspirational for our listeners to hear us share our worldviews.
I appreciate you, Derek, and all your wisdom and guidance today and every time we get together. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your perspective, and I like how easy to follow a lot of it is and inspiring for us to explore more things. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. So everyone, bring out the magic in the everyday. Be magicians. Enjoy. Be joyful being magicians.
I want to thank our sponsors, Spark Social Press, my publisher, for supporting our show and their commitment to spreading joy and empowerment through their magical books. Spark Social Press believes in the power of mindset and the magic of self-expression. Our enchanting children's book series, The Grateful Giraffes, teaches little ones the importance of gratitude and positive thinking by expressing themselves thoughtfully and tenderly, and with illustrations of their delightful adventures and heartwarming lessons. Spark Social Press offers gift books for grown-ups for every occasion, helping you express the perfect words to make your loved ones and colleagues feel seen and treasured with these lighthearted poetry picture books. At Spark Social Press, we believe everyone is glorious and deserves to be fulfilled with more wonder, wellness, and wisdom. That's why our books are designed to spark creativity, uplift spirits, and empower readers of all ages. To discover the joy of self-expression and spread more wonder in your life, visit sparksocialpress.com today. Together with Spark Social Press, let's embrace the magic of mindset one book at a time. Once again, a big thank you to Spark Social Press for sponsoring the show and for bringing more wonder, wellness, and wisdom into the world through our thoughtful and inspiring books. Wow, what a journey we've been on together. I hope this episode has left you feeling inspired, empowered, and ready to embrace the magic in your life. I'd love to hear about your experiences and insights. Please tag me on social media using the hashtag Magical Mindset Podcast, or leave me a DM to share your wins, challenges, and aha moments. Let's keep the conversation and the magic flowing beyond this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of this magical community. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing the wonder of each day. You got this.